Hi guys, welcome back to the channel once again. So guys, if you're coming across this video for the first time, don't forget to subscribe, comment, like and share to my returning viewers and subscribers. Thank you so much for the support, for always coming back and watching my videos. Now in today's clip, it's all about Barbados Prime Minister Mottley. So Mottley did a speech in South Africa, and it was very encouraging. We all know Mottley has always been fighting for the rights of the black people. She has always been fighting for unity amongst our leaders. So she has a very serious speech here for our leaders. I want you to listen to this speech, and I'll be back with a few reactions.
Where Barbados, Jamaica, Grenada and Dominica took action to ban South African goods in solidarity with the people of South Africa, recognizing that though they were thousands of miles away, there was an injustice being perpetrated, man's inhumanity to man, that required people who had little power to take a stand and to say wrong is wrong. And their efforts were soon followed months later in April of 1960 in our sister island in Trinidad and Tobago, where the dock workers of Trinidad refused to take the cargo from South Africa off the ships in April of 1960 and refused to refuel the ship that had brought the cargo, recognizing that even though they were dock workers and not capable of great and grave decisions, they could do what they could within the space that they could. And their work was to be followed then, of course, by that titan of Caribbean revolution and social reform, Fidel Castro, El Comandante, who worked then with that other great Caribbean titan, Michael Manley of Jamaica, well known perhaps to many of you. And of course our own father of independence, Errol Walton Barrow, who worked with Fidel Castro in the struggle for the liberation of the peoples of Southern Africa by allowing the planes that left Havana, Cuba, to refuel in Bridgetown, Barbados, in order to bring the troops in to Southern Africa, and in particular Southwestern Africa. And then, of course, there was the decision of the Commonwealth heads of government. And I remember as a young law student in London, caught up in the fervor of the anti-apartheid movement and caught up in the passion of wanting to see your own imagery on television, because in those days you just didn't. And when we saw the students of South Africa week after week rise up to take their future into their own hands, it placed the pressure on leaders like Margaret Thatcher and others, such that by the time the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting went to Nassau, Bahamas, a determination was made to establish the Eminent Persons Group. And in that Eminent Persons Group, co-chaired by Malcolm Fraser of Australia and Chief Obasanjo of Nigeria, it also included a woman who was to become the first Governor General of Barbados, Dame Nita Barrow, who came here as one of the 7 persons to determine whether there could be a platform for talks and for release in order to ensure that the ungodly and unconscionable actions of apartheid could be brought to an end. Regrettably, their work was to be stymied by the then government, but they were capable and able at the time to meet Madiba. And it is instructive what they wrote in their unanimous report about Madiba in 1986, and I quote, "Having visited him on 3 occasions, what was their assessment? That he impressed us as an outstandingly able and sincere person whose quality of leadership were self-evident. We found him unmarked by any trace of bitterness, despite his long imprisonment. His overriding concern was for the welfare of all races in South Africa in a just society. He longed to be allowed to contribute to the process of reconciliation. This was not post-release. This was not on the eve of release. This was still deep in the bowels of his imprisonment. And you know, I've deliberately decided to take a segue this afternoon before addressing the fundamental issues, because it is important that we contextualize the struggle and the values for those who refuse to be reminded, or who fail to be reminded, or who are not reminded, may well believe that this was as easy as dealing with the twinkle of an eye with the remediation and reparation of an awful thing. It hurt me to hear that there are some who believe that Madiba did not do enough, and perhaps worse for a few, that he might have been a sellout, all because what they believe, justifiably so, should be theirs today is not yet theirs. I've deliberately started this conversation this evening by carrying you back to the 1950s and stopping in the 1980s and stopping again in the 1990s. Because if there is any one single truth, it is that each of us runs our leg of the relay. And the baton is all that can be required of us to carry. And yesterday I had the distinct honor of going to the Foundation's headquarters in the Center of Memory, and of reading, and I feel so privileged to be given copies of the transcript in Madiba's own handwriting, and I shall treasure them as long as I have breath. But in reading his own assessment of where he was and what he believed had happened, in what was to become the beginning of chapter 1 of the presidential years, it was ironic that he started with the words, "Men and women all over the world, right down the centuries, come and go." Men and women all over the world, right down the centuries, come and go. What is more significant for me is that as he ended that first chapter, he also reflected on the fact that he sought at no stage for the fame that was to follow him, and that the notion that he could be regarded as a saint was one that he thoroughly rejected. And the last words, "I never was one even on the basis of an earthly definition of a saint as a sinner who keeps trying." My friends, we need to pause sometimes and to remember context always. And I do so because in a very real sense, that which I've come to address you today on too is the subject of a great struggle, and will be the subject of a struggle that will require many different people to run their different legs of the baton, of the race, to hand over the baton. And the example of Madiba is the example more than any other that I would want us to hold on to, because in so doing, it is the values that he exhibited, the moral example, the moral compass that he provides, that gives us both the strength and the capacity to run this race, which will be the greatest race that humanity will require of any generation. It stands out for me that at the very outset, courage was never lacking. It is a cause for which I am prepared to fight, but a cause for which I am prepared to die. How many of us can say that today? It was the moral fortitude of a man that determined that no type of offer with special conditionalities for early freedom would be acceptable, because what was required was justice. It is amazing that in the face of the gravest and greatest inhumanity, not just to himself, to his family, to his people, that the vengeance that would otherwise eat and force others into action was absent from his mind, body, and spirit. And as I just read to you from the evidence of the Eminent Persons Group, not conveniently so as an act of politics, but as an act of character, deep in the bosom of his imprisonment. And then there's the story that was told to me yesterday by Cello, as we looked at the photographs of what his cell contained. And I well recall my own visit to Robben Island 20 years ago. And all who, like me, have practiced a little criminal law in my career know that that is a common sight in colonial constructed prisons that had no sanitary facilities. And the humility of the man captured best in being able to ensure that when one of his own brothers was unable to take care of themselves in the most basic and human of ways, that Madiba performed the duties of cleaning for him. An example of servant leadership, if ever there is one. So forgive me if I have strayed a bit, because I believe that in this world where everything is instantaneous and quick, and where people expect results like that, we sometimes need to remind ourselves of the context of the struggles that we fight, and to remind ourselves of what truly was at stake. There are some young people who would simply now, 3 decades after his release, will only know of Nelson Mandela in the context of a history book or in the stories told by others, but would not appreciate what it is to be prevented from being able to love who you want, to work where you want, to live where you want, to do what you want, in ways that are simply not capable of contemplation today. But we can't talk about economic justice and economic opportunity if the basic aspects of freedom have not been guaranteed. No one expects us to be stuck in a moment of time, but it is the understanding that he did what was his to do. It is now up to us to do what is ours to do. And it is for that reason I've come to KwaZulu-Natal. You know, we live in a world that is at a very strange moment in time. It has been described recently as a polycrisis. And it has been so described because as soon as you get accustomed to managing one crisis, you've been hit with another one and another one and another one. And that is what it has felt like in the last few years. This country already knows what it is to lose people to the ravages of a public health crisis as you did with HIV and AIDS for so long. Then to have to face, like the rest of us, the awful pandemic of COVID-19, taking away so many. All of us know people who have died in the last few years. None of us dreamt of a moment when our movement would be restricted such that we couldn't do the things that we wanted to do. And this was not being imposed on us by authoritarian governments. This was being imposed by public health specialists for the safety and survival of all of us. And as if that were not enough, because we were already fighting the climate crisis, we were still recovering from the financial crisis of 2008-9. As if all of that was not enough, then comes the awful scourge of the cancer of inflation, the cancer of the cost of living. And believe you me, it is a cancer, because you keep trying to run after it and run after it, but you can't catch up with it in that way. And we have now to come to understand that as much as we needed to mobilize to fight against vaccine inequity, that we were not a one-issue country or a one-issue people, that we literally had to fight these multiple crises, because as all of this is happening, people were still dying from the climate crisis. I don't talk about the climate change. Change happened a long time ago. Crisis is where we are, and crisis is what we have to fight. And today, I want us to recognize that what is required of us is going to have to allow us to, one, develop partnerships in places where we may never have dreamt of so doing before, and to be able to do things in new ways that we had never thought of doing, and that the actions required are not simply those of others, but of us, because it is the collective action that has led the world to be where it is today. There is no doubt that those primarily responsible for the increase in greenhouse gas emissions are the G20 countries, for whom 80% of the responsibility is there. Within that context, the traditional colonial powers who benefited from the Industrial Revolution through our blood, our sweat, and our tears, have been the ones who have effectively put the world in this position of warming. Theirs is the stock of gases. But then there are those who continue today, for which there are many of us. No name, no blame, because it's all of us. And it is the combined effect of the stop primarily, but yes, the flow today, that continues to cause the problems. I want us to reflect on the principles of justice and solidarity.
Welcome back, guys. I hope you have watched the full clip. So that was Mottley. So this speech was down in South Africa, and the main message of Mottley is unity amongst our leaders. Mottley wants a situation whereby Caribbean and African leaders stand up as one. Caribbean and African leaders become united so that, they always say, when you are united, you will prosper, but when you are divided, you will fail. So if African leaders and Caribbean leaders will be divided, then they will fail. Now, look at, for instance, what is happening, for instance, in Jamaica. Now, Chinese, I want to talk about Chinese in this case, how they are doing to my brothers and sisters in Jamaica with the support of the government. Now, when leaders like Mottley come out to tell these things, to expose these things, to talk about reality, our leaders are always neglecting that. They are always, trying to run away from that because they have become puppet to these people and there's nothing they can do. They are borrowing money from them, and this money does not even help the people. They are using this money for their own uses. So most of our leaders, they have forgotten the reason as to why we took them to office. They are selling our country, they are selling our people, they are doing things that people don't want or don't like. So big up to leaders like Mottley. She's one of the greatest, fearless, courageous women who always comes out in broad light to try and send a message to these people. Because if we will not be united, if we do not work together, then we will fail. Now, look at how, rich Africa and Caribbean is. Africa is very rich. We have so many mineral resources. We are very, very rich. But why is it that people have to leave these countries and go and find, jobs in these foreign lands? Why? Why must that happen? Now, look at how Jamaica PM is supporting the Chinese. The Chinese are prospering in Jamaica. They are making good money in Jamaica, and they're taking everything to their homeland, leaving Jamaica with nothing. And now the only thing that is benefit is the government. They are the only ones that are benefiting from the Chinese. Because why? They are able to borrow loans from China, of which they are not using the same money to help the people of Jamaica. So the people of Jamaica, they have been crying, they have been trying to send numerous messages, and it seems, the PM does not listen. The PM still supports the Chinese government, and the Chinese prosperity in Jamaica is very, very high. It's on a way another level. All the businesses are being operated by them. Everything is done by the Chinese. So my brothers and sisters from Jamaica, they only have one thing to do, and that is working for these people. So instead of providing jobs for the people, you are bringing in foreigners, people who don't love us. These people will never love us, and they don't like us. They will never like us. We all know that. Even they know that. They will never ever like us. But when you bring them in, you support them and you forget about your own people. Now that's where our leaders go wrong. It is happening in the Caribbean, it is happening in Africa, and it is very, very, very wrong. Our leaders, they have this habit of supporting these foreigners who are, who don't really love us. They don't, and they will never ever love us. And by the way, these people are very, very smart. When they come to our countries, they utilize our resources very, very well. And they leave us with nothing. They go with everything to their homelands. Now look at how stupid our leaders are and how we are, because now as people, we don't have power to control or change anything. Obviously, we don't, because we chose people who have the power to go and help us, to go and protect us, to go and protect our resources, to go and make sure that we have jobs, to go and make sure that we are living peaceful and happy. But now when they go to offices, everything becomes the opposite. They start supporting them, they start giving them lands, they start giving them jobs, they give them everything. And we, the people who voted for them, we are remaining with nothing. People are dying of hunger. People don't have food. People don't have homes. People don't have water. People don't have jobs. We don't have, health facilities. Our roads are very, very poor. And you are just there, supporting the foreigners. So Mia Mottley has been on tours with our leaders, and she has been doing this for so many years. Like so many years. Look at how our black people are, look at what is happening to our black people in these Western countries. Our black people are facing challenges when they go to these people's land. They're facing serious challenges. But when they come to our lands, one thing that we do is we support them, we give them our lands, they get good jobs here, they utilize our resources and take everything back to their countries. But when we go to their countries, we come with nothing. In fact, it's just always regrets that we are always getting there because they don't support us, they discriminate us. You know what they do in their countries to the black people. But we, the black people and our leaders, we are there. You will find, a black person, somebody somewhere refusing to support his own black brother, but supporting, these people. So Mia Mottley is talking about unity amongst, African leaders and Caribbean leaders. If we can be united, then we won't be needing these people. Obviously, we won't. We will support one another. We will stand strong alone. Look at how Burkina Faso is right now. I really love how, Ibrahim Traore has done to that country. These people have no way of entering that country. They have no way of investing in that country. They have no way, of reaching the resources of Burkina Faso. They cannot. In fact, they can never think of Burkina Faso because they know there's a giant there, there's a leader there, a true leader, a leader who works according to the will of his people. And this is what exactly what we want from our leaders, working according to the will of the people. If our leaders can do that, then we can really go far, as Africans, as the Caribbean people. We know Caribbean people are also our people who came from here, so we are always one. So if we work as one, if we work in unity, unity is very, very important for both of us. Unity will help us, will make us grow, and will, control how these people are trying to do to us. So big up once again to Mia Mottley for that, wonderful speech. So guys, thank you for watching this video. In the comment section, you can tell me about what you think about Mia Mottley's speech, and I'll reply to all your messages. So thank you for watching this video. Until my next video, one love.